how should you start investing in UK property to actually make the money that's needed to achieve financial freedom? Well, in this video, I'm not just going to talk about financial freedom as a concept. I actually want to get down to a step-by-step plan and get into the tactics and map out a genuine game plan if you are genuinely wanting to get into property and replace your income with rental income and become financially free. So how do you do it? It all starts with step number one. Now, you wouldn't be here if you knew how to be financially free. Or maybe you do know how to be financially free and there is just a few knowledge gaps or pieces of the puzzle that are missing. And so I want to be able to try and actually plug the holes or the gaps that are missing in your knowledge to actually help you achieve this. And most of my videos, I try and make them as helpful as possible, try and make them as educational as possible. But in this video, as I say, I want to get into the actual nitty-gritty of how this works. And often the reason why people fail in getting financially free or just even starting in property is the very first point that I actually want to make. When I first got into property, I paid for a mentor, quite an expensive mentor as well. But on my very first day of being mentored, I went into this office, sat at a big round table. It felt a little bit like the table out of The Apprentice. I was sat there with maybe 4 or 5 other people with the property mentor at the head of the table, and I thought, this is it. I'm going to finally find out how I can invest in property, how I can start a property business and become financially free, and they're going to share all the secrets. He started by asking, what property strategy are you going to get into? Personally, I don't actually know. I thought that was the kind of the point in being here. I thought you could tell me about the property strategy that you think I should get into. And his answer was just pretty blunt. He was like, it's your life, it's your choice how you get into property and what you do. That's not my decision. And kind of just left me out to dry. I was a little bit gutted. I felt pretty disappointed. And I kind of decided at that point, if I was to ever make it in property, if I was to ever make a lot of money and start sharing what I have learned, I always wanted to make sure that I actually gave people practical and tactical advice, not just kind of leave people to their own devices and say, you know, get on with it. But ultimately, when you do start out in property, you do need to get back to that very first point that we got to in that very first meeting, which is you need to establish which route you want to go down. But how you do that is you need to work out where you want to be and why you want to be there. And not only why you want to be there, but your preferred route to getting there. I don't need to switch off, okay, when I say this, but it all has to start with getting educated. And don't switch off, because I want to actually get tactical on the education side of things as well. But people throw out that statement, you know, step number 1, get educated. Step number 2, you know, just move on. Education it comes in so many different ways, and it can be in the form of videos, podcasts, books. You've got networking events, you've got training, paid training, you've got online programs, you've got 101 million ways of getting educated. But what I would recommend to you is, I wouldn't be getting educated on, okay, you need to learn from start to finish exactly what you need to do before you take the next step. What I'd be educating myself on would be understanding the property strategies that are out there, okay? And the way that I would encourage you to do this, if you want to do this, is I would go out and I would find people at networking events. I connect with people on Facebook groups, property investment Facebook groups. I'd reach out to people, put a post on there and say, I'm based in X location, I'm wanting to get into this property strategy. Is anybody in the area investing in that way? Or, you know, just start connecting with other people who are doing different strategies. And I'd explore 3 strategies to start with. I'd explore serviced accommodation, I'd explore HMOs, and I would explore simple buy-to-lets or buy, refurb, refinance and rent on a buy-to-let basis. The reason being is those, I think, are 3 great strategies for creating passive income, this kind of like financial freedom. Things like flipping houses, deal packaging, they're quite active ways of making money. And so we're talking in this video about becoming financially free. You don't become financially free by flipping houses for the rest of your life. Pretty time and effort intense. And once you've done that, once you've established that kind of connection with those different people, I would start learning a bit more about HMOs. I'd be finding out a little bit more about service accommodation, buy-to-lets. I'd watch a few YouTube videos, I'd ask questions, I'd meet up with people at networking events. You know, there's loads on Eventbrite. If you just Google property networking events near me, there will be ones that pop up. And I'd be asking people in service accommodation, what are the pros and what are the cons about working in service accommodation? And I'd be asking the same about HMOs, and I'd be asking the same about buy to lets. The reason being is you want to get the good and the bad. You want to get the good, the bad and the ugly of every property strategy and just hear about it. And if you think, do you know what, I really would love to get into HMOs, or I'd really love to get into service accommodation or buy to lets, whichever one kind of gets you the most excited, go with that one. And then once you've gone from that point, move on to step number 2. Now this is where things really start to accelerate. After I'd done my first batch of mentoring, I was left a little bit deflated, as I said, felt a little bit miserable. And so I went and found another property mentor, purely by accident actually. But he was able to help me and he gave me this advice, and it's advice I've never actually forgotten. And it's this concept of having a capital cow. Now the capital cow is the figure that you need to work towards to really get started investing in property. If you're anything like me, you'll be skeptical of people who say you can buy houses with no money. It's not true. You can use other people's money, you can use creative finance to do deals, but to buy, own and rent a property are completely your own, you need money. And this pot of cash is what you call your capital cow. So how do you go about making this sort of money? Now I'm going to assume that you're going to be going down the route of HMOs. This is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm investing in HMO properties. So I'm just going to use that as an example. To be in the HMO market, and again, leverage your understanding and your connections with the people you've spoken to at the networking events, on Facebook, watching YouTube videos, speak to them, ask them how much would it cost for me to get into this? What's the pot of capital that I need to buy my first deal? So for HMOs, I would say you're probably likely going to need about £120,000 to get your first good sized HMO. So how do you get £120,000? Well, firstly, if you've got it already, then great. If it's already sat in the bank, you're ready to go. You can move on to the next step. If you've got between £50,000 and £120,000 to invest, then I would start buying properties, renovating them and selling them. I'd be flipping houses and I'd be sourcing properties on the side. And if you've got less than £50,000, then I would source properties for other people, find properties, packaging them up, selling them to investors to make your first £50,000. And then I'd do that as well as flipping a property until you get to that £120,000. Now, if you flip and make about 30k profit per deal, and if you're sourcing deals and you're selling them for about £4,000 on average, if you're going to be flipping properties, if you flip 3 houses and you source between 7 and 8 deals, then you've done it. You've achieved your goal. If you can flip 3 houses and make 30k on each, and if you source 7 to 8 deals, selling them for about £4,000 a pop, then you will have achieved the goal of getting that capital cow established and ready to go. Or alternatively, you could skip all of that and you could just raise 120 grand. You know, you could find family and friends, you could find people at the networking events that you go to, wherever it is. If you can raise the capital and get other people's money invested in your deals, if you can raise £120,000, you can skip all of this and jump straight into the next step. And by the way, if you achieved this, if you've been able to actually make the money, raise the money, well done. You've actually done an incredible job, an amazing thing. To be in a position to buy your first deal, regardless of whether it's a serviced accommodation, whether it's a buy-to-let, whether it's a HMO, well done. You have actually achieved something phenomenal that most people aren't actually able to achieve. So start by patting yourself on the back, saying well done, before you move on to step number 3. Now this is where the concept of having a capital cow really comes to life, okay? So my mentor used to say to me, the goal in property is to get your capital cow, and then it's all about keeping the cow alive. Meaning, if your cash pot is £120,000, you don't want that to be diminished too much until you've got hardly any money or not enough money to do your next deal. At that point, it's like starving the cow and the cow dies. Sorry to any vegans out there. So let's say you've got your £120,000. Your next step is to buy your first deal. Buy a property where you're going to buy, renovate, convert it, add the value. And I'd say this with any property deal, whether it's service accommodation, buy-to-lets or HMOs. You're going to be buying something, converting it, adding value, which is very easy with HMOs at the minute, 5, 6 beds or more. You can significantly up the value of your properties by converting them. If you can do that, refinance the property and rent it out, let's say you leave in £25,000 or around £25,000. If in that process, let's say that took you 6 months, your £120,000, once you've refinanced your money, you've left £25,000 in the deal, you're left with £95,000, which isn't enough to do your next deal. However, In the meantime, in that 6-month period, if you just sell one property deal per month, then that means that by the time you come to refinance, your cash pot, the 25,000 that you've left in the deal, has been put into your pot. So that means that your pot goes back up to the £120,000 that you started with. You've revitalized the cow, the capital cow. It's back to life, it's fresh, and it's ready to go, ready to be invested in the next deal. So let's say that your financial freedom figure, based on all of our base costs of living, we need I need £5,000 a month. With HMOs, your profit is going to be, you might be able to pull off £1,000 a month. So let's say you need to do that 5 times over. If you're working off of the basis that you're going to be doing one at a time, and in the meantime, you're going to be sourcing a deal every month, then that means that in just over 2 years, you're going to be able to have built up a property portfolio of 5 houses that profit you £1,000 per month, and that's genuinely doable. £5,000 a month, and you're left with the 5 houses. You've got your 5 grand a month. You've actually refinanced. You've still got your 120 grand in the bank, so you could go and carry on doing that whilst being financially free. So that is how I would do it. There are other ways of doing it. That is just one of the simplest ways that I know to do it. If you can build up that cash pot, start buying properties, refinancing them, renting them out, and whatever it is that you've left in the deal. I mean, if you pull out all the money, then fantastic, but let's assume that you're going to leave a little bit of money in the deal. If you're sourcing properties on the side, or let's say you flip a house alongside it, if you have the capital to do so, then that means that every time you refinance your properties, you're leaving a bit of money behind, but you're replenishing that pot, the capital cow's being kept alive, and you're ready to go again. This whole property game is about recycling capital and being able to rinse and repeat as much as possible. If you do that every single 6 months, then you've got your financial freedom in just 5 deals in just over 2 years, and it's job done. Congratulations, people. You've become financially free. Now, all of this actually is slightly irrelevant if you don't know how to get into doing the deals. So check out this video here to find out how easy it actually is to start getting into those property deals and sourcing them on, selling them for a profit.